and welcome to another episode of the Bleeding Metal podcast. My name is Pia, my pronouns are she, her, and I'm here with...
Hello, everyone. My name is Suzana. My pronouns are also she, her.
Wow, that was the last time we said that because this is our final episode.
Yeah, I'm so sad about this. I really am. But let's make this final episode a fun one.
Yes. First of all, we are leaving the podcast. We are leaving Bleeding Metal, but Kiki and Martha decided to continue. So you will get a lot of new episodes by them, hopefully. And I'm really excited. I'm curious about what they will do with the podcast and everything, where it leads them.
Yeah, this new chapter for them is going to be cool.
Yes. And we had an idea, or Susanna had the idea to interview me about my podcast journey. Of course, we want to know something about you as well, about you and your podcast journey. And then we also decided to talk about micro activism. Why we want to do that, you will find out later. Let's start with, or do you want to add something?
No, I was just going to tease that the two topics, podcasting and microactivism, they connect beautifully. So it does make sense. Yeah, but I wanted to start by maybe you could tell us a little bit of how this whole thing started for you. And what was your first goal with the Bleeding Metal podcast 8 years ago and so many episodes ago?
So many episodes ago, yes. We originally didn't start as a podcast. We started as a website that was called Metal and High Heels back then because Kiki and I, we worked for an online magazine back then that was called Metal 4. And we suggested to have a page Metal 4 Women because they had specific regions like Metal 4 Hamburg, Metal 4 Bremen, Metal 4 whatever. And we said we want to have a page dedicated for the women in metal. And the hosts of the page, they didn't want that. And Kiki and I, we are like, okay, if nobody wants to do it for us, then we're going to do it ourselves. That's why we started a website back then for and with the community of the Metal Female Voices Fest and the Female Metal event. And we had a lot of interviews there, which we uploaded on YouTube. Of course, we had the connection with the people there, with the visitors and also the bands and everything. And one day Kiki said, well, we could add a podcast to the project. I was like, okay, I never did this, but I had speaking lessons in university and also hosting lessons and stuff like that. So I said, yeah, well, I have the skills to do it. So let's make it happen. And we found out that podcasting was making much more fun. And we had the opportunity to have deeper conversations in the podcast than we would have if we would only write reviews and concert reviews, live reports and stuff like that. And also the video interviews. So the podcast setting for us made it possible to dive deeper into specific topics and also to give the interviewees the possibility to reflect stuff and also tell us more about their journey, because normally you have about 15-20 minutes time for an interview. And when you sit down and do a podcast, then you usually have about an hour. We aimed for half an hour or an hour. That was when we said, okay, the podcast is the main thing. And one day we decided to quit the website because we wanted to put more effort in the podcast. And then we had the whole rebranding thing a couple of years ago because we said Metal and High Heels, we don't feel this name anymore. We don't have the homepage anymore. So let's make this a new thing, more about opinions. And yeah, that was the reason for the rebranding. That was the journey in a nutshell.
Nice. I love that you mentioned the deeper dive into some topics, because I think that's the one thing that for me caught my eye or my ear when I first found out about the Bleeding Metal podcast as a listener first, was this idea of having people from the metal scene discuss not just their albums or their concerts or, promote stuff, which is fine, of course, but also have them discuss deeply what causes they are talking about, the kind of feelings that they are discussing on their albums, the kind of challenges that they face. The whole scene for women it's still difficult. Maybe things changed from 8 years ago to today, but it's still a challenge. So having amazing women talk about the challenges that they faced and the solutions that they found. So the deeper dive for me was the huge thing that made me like the Bleeding Metal podcast over other podcasts and other websites and things like that. For me, that was the highlight for sure. And being able to do that as well as part of the team was really important for me and really, really cool. Do you think that your goal evolved through these 8 years of the podcast? Because as you said, like the first goal was just to exist, right? To have the outlet to talk about women in the metal scene. So how did this first goal evolve through the years?
Oh, it evolved completely, because when we started, we were like, okay, let's make this maybe about clothes and about makeup and all the quote unquote girly stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now we ended up being a very political podcast about feminism. So it was an eye-opening journey for us and also for the people we interviewed, because we interviewed some of the women several times.
Mm-hmm.
And in the beginning, or very much in the beginning, we also asked them if they've faced sexism in the metal scene. And many of them said, no, we don't.
Mm-hmm.
Or no, I don't. And it was just this year that we had the episode out with Laura from the Tex Avery syndrome. And she came to us and said, well, I reflected on what we talked, and now I found out I face sexism every day. And it's so normal for me that I didn't realize this. And that was something, the more we talked to people, I think the topic also was there suddenly for them too, like what we said also in the racism episode, that they finally saw the ghost that we also see. But especially I also had to see the ghost, because in the beginning I was like, yes, I'm a metal fan, I'm a woman, let's just bring in the perspective of a woman. But I also didn't feel like I was affected by sexism, but that also changed, of course, through the years.
I feel like that too, that maybe if you had talked to me 8 years ago, I would have said something different about feminism and how I'm affected by it. I think I would also kind of be tricked by this illusion that, yes, we solved sexism and now it's just it's a bright road ahead of us. And unfortunately, it is not. I think a lot of the sexism that we will maybe read in older books or see in the movies or learn about from documentaries, things that older generations faced, sometimes they are the same today, only more in disguise. So, so for example, women couldn't work outside of the house some years ago. It was outlawed. Of course, we know that. And of course, now we can work and study and so on. But there are still, to this day, research showing that men are very upset when women make more money than they do, or when they advance in their career more than they do. And this is still kind of a not very much talked about reasons for divorce or for relationships to break up. And also sometimes justification for violence against women. So there is still this idea that women have to be smaller and below men in so many levels. So yes, I guess it's an illusion. Some sexism is still here today. And also I feel like maybe the feminism that we would talk about in the 80s and 90s, I think now, and we have talked about this in the podcast as well, not only we are still trying to talk about the same stuff that generations and generations have been talking about, but also now I think we are more, hopefully, inclusive in the feminism itself, because now we are talking about race issues and we are talking about social inequality and poverty, and so the subject also got a bit wider in the range of stuff that we want to talk about. So the problem kind of got bigger, which is a good thing. At least we're talking about more stuff.
Yes, and we now see this intersexuality, because My mother is also a feminist, but there are so many things that she doesn't really understand. For example, when it comes to trans people, or maybe something she doesn't want to understand. I don't know. But her feminism is completely different, not completely, but is very different to my feminism, because I have this perspective on everything, or I try to have this perspective on everything. And she completely focuses on white women. I can't blame her for that, because media was so different. So when she grew up, they had radio, there was hardly a TV accessible. So the environment where you grew up was different. And I also said this in this podcast, I'm very, very thankful for the feminists back then, because they planned this road for us that we are walking on now.
Yeah.
That we can extend now. So that's the basic, that's the foundation. And if they wouldn't have been there, it would be much more difficult for us now. So
yeah, for sure. That's for sure. As limited as it may have been in the past, I think it definitely opened a door that we now have this obligation of making the door bigger and bigger. That's for sure. In your 8 years of podcasting, did you see changes in the scene itself? I think you kind of started talking about that. But did you see the scene evolve, hopefully, when it comes to those topics?
Yes. When we started, we were alone. We were the only ones, or it felt like we were the only ones talking about the topic. Correct me if I'm wrong, send me links and stuff. And over the years, there were more and more magazines, podcasts, or parts of big magazines also talking about the topic. And Kiki made a joke only a few years ago where some German magazines were pointing on the topic, and she was like, yeah, we talked about this 2016 already. It's not a new thing, like you were showing it now. But yeah, I think that the topic also, because the politics or the society in general changed, or some people are louder than they were back then. The whole topic is more in the mind of the people, and you cannot exclude everyday life from music. So that also affects each other. But yes, I am very happy that there are other podcasts too, and other magazines focusing on the topic. That makes it much more, or much easier for me to retire. Because I want this topic to be there. And if there are other people talking about that, then I'm very happy.
Oh, yes. For me, this is the main thing. I think it was one of the things that I loved the most about being part of the team, because I want this topic to be talked about. So, yeah, for sure. I identify with that. Working in the podcast and in the music media for such a long time, did you get to meet more journalists, women or men, that address those topics as well? Like the media community also got bigger, talking about feminism and women in metal.
I would say there are, in general, more women in the metal scene than 10 years ago or 8 years ago when we started. I also have a German podcast still, Pommesgabe, and I was part of Leise war gestern, also a German podcast. And of course, I brought in my personality, and also feminism is a part of my personality. So my viewpoint on things, of course, was a bit different than from my team colleagues there. And I noticed that they started to become vocal about things, about politics and stuff, that I didn't expect of them. And I don't know if they did it because of me, because I started being vocal, or I was vocal about stuff, and they were like, okay, if she does it, I can do that too. It's allowed, quote unquote, in this podcast to do that. Or maybe they would have done that without me, but also we are sliding into our next topic a bit, maybe, because me doing this constantly, pointing also on things that I think this is something that went wrong in the metal scene, and it was a topic affecting women, stuff like that. Maybe that also made them see that there is a problem, and also, yeah, being more sensitive about things, at least.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool. I guess having a woman as part of the team, I guess it opens a door for the rest of the team. Maybe if it were three guys talking about whatever, they wouldn't feel as easy or as familiar with some topics, or maybe they would be like, why would be if there is no women or women in the team? Or yeah, so maybe I think maybe you did open a door a little bit, maybe to something that was already important to them, but they didn't know how to talk about, maybe.
And what I found really cool was in one of the podcasts, we have topics that we don't know before. So there is a generator that says you have to talk about this topic for 10 minutes now.
Uh-huh.
And my colleague had a guy in the podcast as a guest, and they got the topic queer metal.
Nice.
And he was like, okay, I don't want to talk about this with you because we are two guys who don't really know that much about the topic. And I don't want us to just say anything that is not representing, or he said he wants someone to talk about this topic who can represent a part of the queer metal community. And that is also something that I'm very happy that some men learned that they shouldn't talk about every topic. They might not know enough about a topic. And because of that, don't talk about that. I found that really cool of him.
Yeah. That's almost a new concept. Like, oh, maybe I don't know about everything. Maybe because I have a platform doesn't mean that I'm allowed or I should pretend to be an expert on everything. Yeah, that's cool. And also, like, not talk about certain things out of respect, not because this is irrelevant or stupid, or why would we even talk about this, or that doesn't even exist, right? That's cool. That's cool. My next question for you, I even wrote it down. Like, I want you to say yes to this. I want the answer to be yes.
Yes.
I hope you get to say yes to this question. But the question is, in 8 years of podcasting and talking about women's issue, do you feel that some topic is now outdated? Like, you would ask people that, but today is just like, we are over this. Is something just, can we leave something behind? This is too old.
I would say so, yes.
Yay!
I would say that back then it was normal to not have women on stage at a festival and stuff like that. And today that is maybe not outcalled, but people notice. Kiki mentioned this project where they post the festival posters with only the bands where women play in, and they are kind of empty. So there's still a long way to go. But I think the topic is in the heads of the people even more. And also I see more and more female instrumentalists. So back then it was mostly the vocalists.
Yeah.
So they are also making their way to stage, which is important to have this someone who represents women on stage as instrumentalists, so that younger women and girls know, okay, I can do that too, for example. So it's not a big phenomenon anymore.
Ah, that's good. That's good.
Yes.
I think maybe also we don't have as much men talking for the whole community, or men talking for women, or taking the space for other people to have their voices heard and talk for themselves. I don't know if that's a thing that is solved yet. I don't think that's a topic that we can absolutely not talk about anymore. It's in the past. But yeah, but I agree with you. Many of the issues, they still exist, but at least they don't go unnoticed. I don't think we can have a festival with no women and it's going to be like, yeah, okay, it has always been, right? People will point out. And I think we have more dominant group of people. So, for example, like straight people know that they can't talk about or for queer people. I think that happens. And I think that men are also kind of like, okay, we have to at least have one person representing this group on stage.
And another thing that just came to my mind, we had the interview with Dr. Anna Rogers, and she did research about women in the metal scene. And she said women are not longer the holder of things. Because in the past, when you went to a concert, you were the holder of the jacket of your boyfriend so that he could go to the mosh pit. And
the beer.
we left that behind.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, that episode, I think it was one of the first that I listened when I was not part of the team yet. And this episode really changed my life. Her interview changed my life. I can't say that 100% sure. I have stuff that she talked about, like memorized. I still have her book on my to read list, but it's not available online, or it's super expensive because I think it's more of an academic book. So it's super expensive, but it's still there on my list. And with that episode, I learned the concept of, well, I'm not using the right words for sure, but she talked about performing your gender. That was something that was important to me because, and we have talked on this podcast many times before, how we felt that we had to be kind of quote unquote more masculine to be taken seriously and everything. And I learned on this podcast, on her interview, that you have your own gender identity, but you also perform that gender identity for other people to see. So when you leave the house, you want people to know that you are a woman and that, I don't know, that you happen to be heterosexual, in my case, for example. So it's kind of a social theater that we play. And sometimes for me, it was the case that because I wanted to be taken seriously, because I wanted to be think of as smart rather than pretty, which of course there's no problem if you want to look pretty every once in a while, it's fine. But for me as a teenager, as a person trying to kind of build their personality, I wanted to be seen as smart first. So I was more masculine. And that was something that messed with my head a lot because it was like, oh, I'm too masculine. I'm not feminine enough. I had a lot of people insinuate that I was gay, which was not told to me as a okay thing, but as a problem. I was kind of wrong. I was the weird kid who was doing something wrong. And that had to do with not being girly or feminine enough. And then as I grew older, I noticed that no, I'm very feminine. I just happen not to be gay, which is fine if you are, but I just happen not to be. But this whole idea of trying to be something and being perceived as something else kind of messed with my head. And then when I learned the idea that, your gender identity in your brain is something, and what you perform for other people to see can sometimes be different. And she talks about that in the metal scene, like what girls wear to concerts. So maybe that's not even what you wear every day. Like you kind of have the costume of I'm a metalhead now, and then I have my vest and my boots, and that's not even everyday clothes, but that's what you perform for that occasion. And when I learned about those two different concepts, I was like, oh, okay, I needed to hear that when I was 14. Where was she when I needed? But that was very, very cool because two different things. Like what I am in my brain, in my heart, can sometimes be different from what I'm performing because I need people to see a certain side of me. So that was cool. And also you can play with that. Like I can be the metalhead with boots and black t-shirts in a concert, but I can wear a pink dress if I want to. It's fine too. It's a performance, people. It happens sometimes. And it doesn't have anything to do with your sexuality. It's just clothes, people. Come on.
Right.
It was really nice to learn that. And I have the Bleeding Metal podcast to thank for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. One thing that I also wanted to ask you, and I guess it
Final
goes
question.
Final question. I guess it goes to our second topic. It's
yes.
What are the lessons that you learn in podcasting that you will take to life?
First of all, in the beginning, I was also one of the people who thought we are very, very equal already. And yes, and I learned that that is not the case. So that is something. And I also learned how to address the topic. So on different levels. So I'm now very fast in figuring out how the person I'm talking to thinks about feminism. So how big is your knowledge about it? And I also know how to convince or how to make maybe small changes in the way that the people think. So you cannot make a big step when someone is like, we are all equal, or even we shouldn't be equal. If someone says that, then you cannot make that person a feminist through one conversation. So you have to find out where is the next step that this person might evolve to and can go on, or maybe what can I give him as a tool to educate himself without him noticing that I'm doing that. Or her. Sometimes women can be all white men too. Yes, that's probably the biggest thing that I learned. So I evolved as a person. That happens automatically in my head to figure out where this person stands, and then
Oh, but that's an awesome skill. That's an awesome skill. That's great.
Yeah, and sometimes I just know I should get out of the room. It doesn't make any sense at all to talk to this person.
Yeah. Sometimes it's almost like self-preservation as well. That, this battle is not for me.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think it's cool, and I guess it's something that I wish the progressive side would learn more. Is that this idea of tiny steps? Like, I'm talking to this person, I'm not going to make them go 180 in this issue. I'm not going to turn their heads upside down. But what is the possible little win that I can get here?
Yeah, it's a bit like veganism. When you're talking to someone who's eating meat all the time, then it's also part of the progress to say, well, you can add vegetables to your foods, for example. You know, that you cannot take all the meat away from the person, and that won't make the person happy. You know what I mean? You can be happy about the tiny steps that people make to eat more vegetables, to maybe have a veggie day per week or whatever.
Yeah, right. I think also when we want to win the person, change their argument completely, change their minds completely, I guess sometimes we can also get lost in the idea of our winning. I even use the word little win, which is kind of wrong, but sometimes we want to win. Sometimes we be like, you know what, I changed their mind. They're vegan now, and it's about you. Then it's about you. It's not about the cause anymore.
Yes.
And no one wants to be defeated. You know, if you talk to a person wanting to be the winner of the conversation, then they're going to be super defensive. So if it's about like what you're saying, like you assess people and you understand where they are and you understand what their knowledge of the topic is, like how much do they even know about feminism to begin with? And then, you know, like, yeah, but do you think that this issue, then it's a conversation. Then you see their point and then you ask questions and maybe you kind of exchange a little data here and there. And then they go like, oh, okay, this thing I can see, that little point I can understand what you're saying. And then that's good for everyone. I think we get lost sometimes in trying to be the winner and because we are right. Because of course, being progressive or being vegan or being whatever is better. And it's like, no, let's not do that. Let's not forget that the cause is more important than you individually winning this one conversation. Yeah, that's for sure. That's an awesome skill. I like that.
So, how about you? What was the podcast for you? What did or does podcasting mean to you?
Oh, I started with so many ideas, I guess. Podcast meant a billion things at the same time for me. I think it was funny that the invitation to join the team kind of happened in a point in my life where I was really in a mood for talking, getting to know new people, learning more. I had this open heart for new experience. I wanted to do that. And it actually happened because of a series of people that I had met before. And I traveled, so I met people abroad as well. And that's how I met Kiki for the first time. And we were talking online, you and I as well. So it really came to me in a time in my life where I was really happy to do exactly that. So for me, I think, I said before that podcast means a little bit of my tiny activism in the world. Like if I can't be part of an NGO and I'm not a politician myself, I'm not creating laws, I feel like talking and learning and giving a platform for other people who are also doing amazing work is very important. So yeah, podcast was all of those things for me at the same time. It was something that I was doing for fun, that I was so happy to be part of the team, to be making new friends, to be getting to, this opportunity to meet so many new amazing people, and also feel like, yeah, I'm doing a little bit of activism, a little bit of good in the world for causes that mean a lot to me.
That's where we wanted to go, because you said it's your tiny activism. So micro activism is something that we also wanted to talk about. We also need that for the metal scene. So
yes,
I just wanted us to brainstorm how we can be micro activists every day.
yes,
And then especially in the metal scene.
in the metal scene, yeah.
And what we are already doing, because something that I do when I hear that people marry, for example, then I'm asking them which last name they will take.
Nice.
For example.
I like that.
And also when a couple has kids, then I'm always asking, how do you share your parental leave?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't suggest they will take the name of the husband and the woman will stay at home for a year. So I don't take that as given. I'm asking that. That's, for example, one microactivism that I do.
Oh, that's great. And I think we can use that for many things. Just not assuming things anymore. It's good.
Yeah.
Not just assuming that the man is going to do the male role and the woman is going to fit into the female role, because those things are outdated and oppressive. And we already know that for sure. For me, I always have a problem with language, because I'm Brazilian, and Portuguese is my first language, and Portuguese is a gendered language. I think German is a gendered language as well, that you will have like the desk is
3.
female. You have 3? Oh, but you have a neutral. You have a neutral one?
Yeah, but the neutral is more for objects.
Oh,
so
okay,
you wouldn't use that as a non-binary person.
Okay. No, we don't have a pronoun for non-binary people, so it's always difficult for me. We really don't have. Some people are trying to create a new word because we don't have it. And we don't use they, them in Portuguese, because in English that can be like an unspecified person, but also plural. And we don't have that for when it's not specified. The thing with language for me is that whenever it either a group of people or a person is not specified, if it's a man or a woman, it's always the masculine term that we use. If we have a group of people, like we have 20 doctors, 10 are women, 10 are men, and we want to say the doctors, plural, we say the masculine term.
Even when there is one man and the rest is women, right?
Exactly. If there's one man, we say masculine.
Yeah.
And if you want to talk about a person that you like, I'm calling the plumber, or if a teacher tells you this and that, even if it's just an example or a hypothetical person, you use the masculine term for the word. I have used the masculine term to refer to myself a billion times, because when I'm talking about example, like, oh, when you get angry, blah, 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 and it's kind of me. I'm talking about a situation where I got angry. But when I'm talking about just an example, a hypothetical, I will use the masculine. And I'm even like, I'm using the masculine term to myself. Come on, what am I doing? So I'm being annoying in saying the masculine and the feminine. It makes everything longer. Everything that you are trying to say, you go, oh, and women too, and female doctors. And when you get angry, masculine or angry feminine, I have to say, and or women. So yeah, that's something that I'm trying to do, especially when it's like when you're talking about doctors or engineers, more masculine professions, or top in the hierarchy of like the CEO, the boss, and I'm like the female CEO or the male CEO. Yeah, I'm being annoying.
That's cool.
But yeah.
That's very smart. And I just recently read that young children, when they draw someone, they draw more and more female scientists.
That's nice.
Yes. So it has an effect on people. I was also thinking, because I said, yes, we have this microactivism, and we could, if we brainstorm for an hour, I think we would find 1,000 things where we already do this ourselves, or where we could do that. But I was also thinking about how we can do that in the metal scene. And one thing, for example, was we should not separate instrumentalists in the first place and also not vocalists. So, or when we talk about who is a good guitarist, then we should mix that, right? We can say that guy, that woman, that woman, that guy, that woman, that guy. So not say these male guitarists are very good, and then there is Nita Strauss. She's very good. So just mix it, make it normal, normalize that.
I think so too. And it's also sometimes it happens a lot that it's a token woman. It's a woman. It's like best guitarist of all times, and then it's a lot of men, and then but this one woman is also good. I think one thing that we can also do is, like you said, like noticing things and raising our hands, even if it's just digitally sometimes, and say, hey, not enough women in this panel, not enough women in this festival. When we see those lists, like best albums of the 2000s, whatever, those top lists, usually you don't see women. Pointing that out, saying, okay, you made a list of 50 best metal albums of the year, whatever. And then it's 2 bands with women on the list. Especially, I think, when it comes to certain types of metal. So, of course, if we're talking about symphonic metal, you have the singers and so on. But when it's like thrash metal or death metal, I even heard I read this comment on YouTube saying it was an older video of Arch Enemy. And I don't know how to pronounce her name, Angela Gasso. She was the singer at the time. And some comments were like, she was the only woman. She is to this day the only woman who can sing like that. And then a lot of people are saying, that's not true. That's not true. And so a lot of people are like, no. And they gave them like lists and lists and lists of women doing amazing. So I think pointing out stuff, I know that it makes us the annoying feminists who's like, women. But I think we still have to do that, even if it's annoying. We have to annoy the right people have to be annoyed for sure.
And that's also a level of annoying that won't make people completely mad at you and never talk to you, because you're not calling them out directly. You're just saying, well, that's not true. There are these other people. So that's why it's microactivism, right?
Yeah. And it's like, if I'm annoying, then I'm doing it myself. I'm not doing it against anyone. So just pointing that out. And I think it works. I think at some level, the more we make our voices heard, sometimes I guess people will be like, okay, let's have a woman in the list just so we don't get the annoying comments anymore. So
and then ask why there is only one.
Please, come on.
Yes. Something that I also do actively is I'm more willing to listen to a band when there is a woman in the band, because I also want them to have more listeners, of course. And I don't necessarily think they have to be worse than a band with only male musicians, right? I'm more willing to listen to a band, see if I like it or not, when there are female musicians in it.
One thing for me, it's also how women dress on stage, which I think is something that we also talked about on the podcast. It's something that I notice a lot. I sometimes want to comment online, like, oh, I like your bracelet, or I like your nail polish. And sometimes I don't do that because I know they're talking about something else. And I'm like, I'm not going to talk about how pretty their nail polish is. I'm just going to leave that to myself. But I think about it, and I think, unfortunately, that's a topic that is not outdated. Women are still judged by their outfit a lot. There is still a debate of, is this okay to show a lot of skin, or is it not? Is she being free with her body, showing, skin, or wearing shorts or whatever? Or is she kind of doing that because she knows that it works, or was she led to believe that this is the right way to go? I don't know.
Or fat shaming. When I think about some male musicians who come on stage, they are super fat and they're playing around with their belly. You couldn't do that as a woman. You would you would get a shitstorm right away.
No, and it's like you don't even need to be technically fat to be fat shamed, right? If you're not super pretty. and incredibly fit, then you have to hide yourself. So this is bad. So I think, I don't know how I can turn that into micro activism or some kind of activism, but still some kind of comments I don't like, because it's still too much about the way women look.
Maybe also being annoying and say, what does this have to do with the music?
Yes. Yeah.
So that's also something that people like to say when I'm pointing out, well, I prefer listening to bands with women.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, well, but it's about the music. And the same people are judging the look of, you know,
Well, wasn't it about
you
the
can just
music
turn it
just now?
around.
What happened?
Yeah, right.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I guess being annoying, being like, what does this have to do with the music? And yeah, her outfit doesn't affect the music. I think, yeah. I think
Or
what
just,
we're getting into is being annoying is good.
yes. And that's also something that I try to not judge. Also, if I think that a man on stage is attractive, I try to not talk about it. I'm not running around and saying, oh, the guitarist is hot or the bass player is so good looking or whatever.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do that. You can keep that for yourself. You can enjoy looking at that person and think for yourself, oh, what a beautiful person, or what a beautiful dress, or whatever. You don't have to make a thing out of it, and you can still enjoy that. It's nothing wrong with enjoying the look of someone. But you shouldn't reduce the person to that.
Right.
Yay. I hope that we had a lot of examples for microactivism in general, and also something that you can think about what you are doing in your life. Maybe also what you just said, Suzana, that you're referring to yourself as something and then use the male form, for example. That are small changes that you can do that have a lot or a big impact in the end, because it's like seeing the ghost. When you saw it once, you see it everywhere. And microactivism is kind of the same. When you found out how to do that actively, then you can do it on many, many, many occasions.
Yes.
And yeah, don't fear to be annoying. And also, you don't have to do that all the time. You can also relax and shut off your brain or whatever. And you don't have to practice activism all the time. You can also, or you need rest. You deserve rest as well.
Yes, that's true. I think activism works better if it's something that fits your life. It's something that is draining and heavy and difficult, then maybe it's not the right path for you. Maybe the more natural it is, like it's not annoying and it's not you being annoying, or it's not you doing something that is completely out of your way. It's more like natural, like something that we just have it in our day life. And it's even difficult sometimes to remember examples because it's just so part of our lives now. So hopefully we can expand on that and make it more and more just normal for us, for sure.
Yes. And one thing that I can recommend, keep on listening to this podcast, even if we are not part of it anymore. I'm pretty sure Kiki and Martha will do a very, very good job. That's it. The last words belong to you.
I just want to thank everyone in the team, Kiki, you, Pia, and Martha. You and Kiki for bringing me into the team, and Martha for being also part of the team, and the four of us. It was such a great experience. I've learned so very much. I'm so thankful to have met you, the three of you. Of course, I hope we all keep in touch. It was a great journey. And yeah, I'm so sad. I don't even know what to say. I'm sad. I was dreading this recording. But yeah, but like I said, I'm going to be sad a little bit because I'm still processing. But it's overall, it has been a great experience and I've learned a lot, and I want to take all the lessons that I've learned to life, and the people that I've met, and the three of you, to life as well.
Okay, that's awesome. So thank you so much for being part of the journey. Thank you out there for listening. And that's it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.